This is our regular board meeting, Thursday, October 7th. Please call the roll.
Director Carlos Palacios.
Here.
Director Jamie Goldstein.
Here.
Director Rosemary Menard.
Here.
Director Casey Estorga.
Here. Okay, welcome everybody. I know we have some new board members at I believe our first board meeting. Welcome Rosemary, and welcome Casey as well.
Thank you.
Yes. So we'll move on to our second item, which is is there any additional materials for the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 4, which is oral communications. Do we have any oral communications?
No, there are no oral communications.
Okay, so then we'll go ahead and move on to item number 5, which is the Executive Director Report, the Interim Library Director's Report for October.
All right, I've submitted that in writing, so it's in the packet.
Okay. Are there any questions for Eric from any of the board members? Doesn't look like there's any questions. And I believe, I don't think we need to take oral comment on this. So we'll move on to project updates and any comments from board members. I don't see any updates. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. And there's, as I see it, only one item, which is the minutes on the consent calendar. Any discussion on the consent calendar? No. Are there any public comments on the consent calendar?
Board Member Palacios, there are no public comments.
Great. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Great. I have a motion from Director Goldstein.
I'll second.
Thank you, Casey. So I have a motion and a second. Go ahead and call the vote.
Director Carlos Palacios.
Yes.
Director Jamie Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Rosemary Menard.
As I was not at the last meeting, do you allow abstentions for the minutes?
Well,
Not really.
not really, because otherwise we won't have you and Casey.
Don't have enough to pass the minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Aye.
And Director Casey Estorga.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. That passes unanimously. We'll move on to general business. And the first item is election of the interim chair and vice chair for October through December of 2021. There's a staff report with a recommendation, and we're doing this because of the change in staffing in Santa Cruz and Scotts Valley. So is there any staff report on this?
You've summed it up well, and we're only going forward with this for the next few sessions until we return to the new year, and we just thought it was best to bring in the veterans on this one for the next couple.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, is there any public comments on item A, election of the chair and vice chair?
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay, great. We'll go ahead and bring that back to the board for a motion and a second.
Move the staff report or staff recommendation.
Great, thank you, Rosemary.
I'll second that. Oh.
Okay, motion by Director Menard and second by Director Goldstein. Go ahead and call for the vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Yes.
Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Estoca.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to item B, which is a municipal advisor agreement. Staff recommendation is to approve the municipal advisor agreement for the third series of the CFD special tax bonds. Do we have a staff report on this?
I'm going to defer to Edith. For
Your
this
name was
topic.
on it. As your board knows, we've used, as a municipal advisor, we've used Suzanne Harold for our last two bond issues. And it was set up that she needs a different contract for each bond issue. And so this is just coming to your board for the third and final-ish bond issue.
Great. Do we have any questions regarding the agreement for Edith?
For Suzanne. Oh, questions for me, but the agreement's for Suzanne. Okay, yes.
Okay, is Suzanne on the call?
She was available to call if we,
Okay,
Eric, she communicated with you on that. Yeah.
okay, great. Okay, any board members with any questions? I see Director Goldstein.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little funny to be asking this question on the third time that we're doing this, Edith. I apologize, but talk to me about what Suzanne's role is with this, because as I see it, you know, the role of an FA in the bond issue at this point is sort of narrowing in a sense, given the fact that we have an authorized tax measure, we have so much capacity. There's just the window of things to be looking at is narrowing. Talk to me about what you see her role being in this next round of bond issue.
Sure. So similar to, let's go backwards a little bit. The first round, there might have been a little bit more because we were looking at doing our first bond issue, and we successfully did a second issue. But every time you go out to the market, we still need to do all the same. It's as if we're we're going out for a brand new bond issue. So all the things she normally does, all the analysis, all the review, being the point person with the bond counsel and disclosure counsel, and walking us through all the way to the point of issuance and closure are all the things that she is the lead person on and our advisor on that. My job as your treasurer is simply to acquire the funds and work with her cooperatively.
Does she market the bond to underwriters? Is that part of this work?
Well, it will depend on what the determination is of the market at the time. As we are getting farther and farther out of COVID, she may come to you with the recommendation to do a private placement. I'm going to guess we might hopefully be at the place where we will be able to actually go out to the market and sell our bonds. And so she would work with the professionals to, as our advocate to do that, as our advisor.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Director Palacios, Suzanne has her hand up. Would you like me to open her line?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. I wasn't aware that she was actually already in. Suzanne, I hope I summarized your duties as best I could.
Yes, thank you, Edith. And good afternoon, board members. As Edith mentioned, each bond issue is kind of a standalone transaction. And so while there might have been a lot more planning to do in the earlier stages, we still help kind of structure the bonds, project your tax revenues, negotiate all the fees with the other parties, select an underwriter, and make sure that the interest rate on the bonds that they offer is acceptable, and again, do all the closing transactions. So as Edith mentioned, there's still quite a lot of steps in the bond issuance process that I'm here to walk you through.
And Suzanne, I forget the name of the document you produce, the disclosures, or it's the financial analysis agreement?
That's right. In addition to doing all the projections and all the numerical information that's required for the issue, I do prepare the preliminary official statement, which is the document that the underwriter uses to market the bonds and talks all about the security and sources of repayment.
Great. Yeah, the official statement. I forgot what it was called for a second, but I always find it fascinating reading, strangely enough. It always is a great summary of.
You always find out something new.
I always find out something new about my organization. I go, wow, I didn't know that. So it's a great summary. Any other questions for either Suzanne or for Edith? I don't see any. So we'll go ahead and go to the public and see if there's any public comment on this item.
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay, great. Then we will come back to the board for a motion and a second.
I move we approve the municipal advisory agreement for the third series of the CFD special tax bonds.
Great. Motion by Board Member Goldstein.
Second.
Second by Board Member Menard. Go ahead and call the vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Astorga.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, Edith, for that. And next item is the item C, which is the remote teleconference meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. It's a staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution authorizing the remote teleconference meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. I guess we're all doing this at our own board meetings as we all continue we're in a hybrid formation in the county, and I know we'll be doing that, but I imagine you folks will be doing it as well. But if there are any questions for staff on this item.
And I just, if I could, Carlos, I wanted to mention that in the next item, when we talk about the next meeting, I would like to make the recommendation that we do a hybrid. We are fortunate in Santa Cruz County that the health outcomes are trending in the right direction, and hopefully they will continue to do so. But this also gives us the provision in case things go in the opposite direction, then we can go back to the medium that we're in right now. And I don't know if Ruby would like to comment on it anymore.
Of course, I was on mute. No, I just wanted to give my thanks to Mary Haley from the City Attorney's Office of Santa Cruz, ABC firm that drafted this for us. They drafted the resolution for your next meeting as they represent your JPA. And so they kindly shared this with Eric. So that saved us some work here and some timeliness for this meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jamie, I see you have a question.
Yeah, so this is related to what Director Howard just mentioned. Are you receiving feedback at the library level pressuring the board to be either having a hybrid option or in-person option? Have you received any communications in that regard?
No, I haven't. We did successfully hold the Library Advisory Commission as a hybrid in the Capitola Library. And I know that the commissioners were very appreciative of being in person. And I think it's also just a new forum for so many, but we had it set up so that if the public were there, they could also interact through Zoom with the meeting.
Okay. Well, my own feedback at this point is I'm not feeling a lot of pressure to go to hybrid. I would defer to my other board members if you would like to. We can certainly arrange it, but certainly as one individual, I'm okay with this format. I think this format works pretty well for the time being. So I'm not feeling a lot of pressure if it puts more work on staff to try to arrange for a hybrid meeting. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, Director Menard, do you have a question or comment?
So it's my understanding that AB 361 requires a routine sort of 30-day every 30-day resolution, but obviously this group doesn't meet every 30 days to pass a resolution. So how is that being addressed in this in this resolution that we've got in front of us?
Perhaps Ruby, you could take that question.
I think we have two options here. Well, let me step back and say that I think the state legislature forgot that some bodies do not meet every 30 days. And so that's unfortunately a deficiency in the state law.
Yeah.
But I think we have two options here. I think you could call the most conservative approach, I would say, is that you could call a special meeting to extend the 30-day resolution, or at the next meeting on December 7th, we could simply adopt a new initial resolution.
Okay.
Okay.
Just asking for the public to have that information in the background.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Are there other questions or comments from the board? Okay. Are there any public comments?
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and ask for a motion and a second to approve the resolution.
I move we approve the resolution authorizing remote teleconferencing meetings pursuant to AB 361.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a second from Director Menard, motion by Director Goldstein. Go ahead and call the vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Yes.
Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Estorca.
Yes.
Okay, so we're on to item 9, which is scheduled upcoming meetings. Do we need any action on this, or is it just informational? Eric, I guess that's for you. Question for you.
So it's, I think we still have the outstanding question of whether or not we are going to be in person or virtual for December, or the hybrid version, I should say.
So I guess I had a question on that. If we do a hybrid meeting, then it would be optional for board members also to be virtual. So, or would it be required that the board members be actually physically present?
I think that would be perfectly fine.
Okay, so board members could elect to be virtual if they want. I know my own board, I have a few board members who are choosing to remain virtual, and I have 3 who are actually coming in to the physical meetings. I'm fine with doing a hybrid meeting if staff, if it's not too much of a burden on staff. I know there's probably some people who want to come physically and who may not feel comfortable with technology and so forth. That was one of my concerns when we moved to one big virtual meetings, is that for some members of the public, it is an obstacle. So if staff is willing to do it, I'm okay with it. I don't know other board members like to comment. Looks like there's.
Eric, do you have a location where you would plan to do this?
Yes, great question. The new Capitola Library.
It's set up. I know that in the city council chambers have been setting up for hybrid, and the technology is quite daunting as we're seeing what's coming.
Yeah. But you tossed out Capitola Branch Library, and it makes it hard for me to say no, Eric.
It was a trick.
made it harder for me. Well, my own 2 cents is I share Carlos's concerns about the general public accessing it. That's why I asked the question earlier about whether or not you were getting pushed to have in-person meetings. Given we haven't seen push, I'd be fine doing it in December and then kind of evaluating where we are moving forward. But again, if we're going to host a Capitola branch, I'd love to be there too. So I can go either way. And I know these aren't easy for staff because you're kind of inventing the ship while flying it. I totally recognize that.
Yeah.
And I do have to recognize Sarah, who's been orchestrating all of this from the very beginning. She's the person behind the scenes who made this happen for the LAC and did a wonderful job, along with Kira and Yvonne as well. So they did make it work, and it was very successful. The trick in part is mute discipline. And then when you're in our libraries, you do have to wear a mask. So you'll have interesting little hiccups when someone is muted and they're talking and we don't even know they're talking because they have a mask on. And so just kind of being mindful of those things. But apart from that, I think it was very successful.
Well, great. Casey.
Would it be important for us to RSVP in advance if we were planning to attend in person so we can logistically plan for that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you. That would be helpful.
I would like to actually see the Capitola Library. I think I was on the grand opening. I didn't get my reservation in on time or something, but I'd like to. It'll be nice to actually see it. So looking forward to being there. Okay, any further comments? So it looks like it's a go for a hybrid meeting. And any public comments on this?
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay, I don't think any action is necessary. It's sort of just a discussion, and staff took general direction from the discussion, I believe. So with that, we'll go ahead and go to item 10, which is adjournment. And we will then move immediately into the Santa Cruz City County Libraries Joint Powers Authority Board regular meeting, Thursday, October 7th. And we will go ahead and do a roll call.
Director Palacios,
Here.
Director Goldstein,
Here.
Director Menard,
Here.
Director Estorca.
Here.
Okay. Do we have any additional materials or additions and deletions to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, so that takes item 2 and item 3. We'll now move to item 4. Are there any oral communications?
No, we do not have any oral communication.
Okay, thank you. We will then move to item 5, which is the report by the library director.
I've submitted that in writing.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments on the library director's report? Okay. I don't believe there's any action on that, so I think we can, I don't think we need oral communications on that. Is there item 6, report by the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries?
Yes, there is. Thank you, Director Palacios. I appreciate it.
Great.
For the new members of the board, my name is Bruce Cotter. I am the Executive Director of the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. Prior to taking the Executive Director position, I served on the Library Advisory Commission, and I was also the Vice President of the Board of the Friends as well. As you know from my previous reports, our primary objective this year has been the raising of $1 million to supplement the Measure S funds that are available for the Aptos, Branciforte, and Garfield Park branches. I must say that we continue to be amazed by the generosity of the Santa Cruz County community overall in supporting the Realizing the Promise campaign. At this point, we have about a little over $500,000 in hand, and have just recently been awarded an additional $200,000 from an anonymous donor through the efforts of Mayor Donna Meyer of Santa Cruz. We also have another $215,000 in commitments, which we expect to realize over the next 2 months. So that will take us to over $900,000. We are extremely confident that we will achieve our goal of $1 million by the end of the year. I have to make a couple of kind of personal side comments to this. The first is, this is a significantly larger number than this organization has ever tried to do before. And it is a tribute to our many, many volunteers and the hardworking board members that we are at the point that we're at. I would particularly mention Tricia Wynn, who is driving the Aptos campaign, and Martha Dexter, who is driving the Branciforte and Garfield Park campaigns. Those are a little more difficult than Aptos or Capitola or Fulton before them because they don't have local chapters. And so the local structures had to be built up by the committees to achieve this. So it's very exciting. We're kind of on the last legs here and just really thrilled about it. Some of you may know Allison Endert, who passed away last year in a very tragic car accident. There is a special sub-campaign. A group of friends have gotten together to raise $115,000 to name the children's room in Branson 40 for her. And that is going extremely well. They're more than halfway to their goal on that. In addition, I am pleased to announce we have been awarded a grant by Sunlight Giving Group of $53,000 for Live Oak. You may recall that the acoustical ceiling for the children's area in Live Oak had to be taken out for budgetary reasons. $53,000 will allow us to put that back in. And so very pleased that has happened. There will also be an additional $7,000 that's coming in for Branson 40. The $7,000 will count towards our campaign. The $53,000 doesn't because it's Live Oak wasn't one of the campaign targets, but we are pleased to have it and grateful to Sunlight Giving. You may recall that they gave us a grant in 2019 for about $70,000 for the children's patio and garden at Branson 40. So I'd really like to thank our president, Janice O'Driscoll, Director Howard, and his library staff for their efforts in getting this most recent gift in place. And we have just completed the transfer, or more accurately, we have approved the transfer. I have a check waiting to give Eric tomorrow in your consent calendar to approve the $93,000 in final funds from the Monterey Peninsula matching grant to the library. This grant provided substantial funds for Garfield Park, La Selva Beach, and Boulder Creek, most of which were raised last year and the very beginning of this year. And then finally, I would just say our board continues to grow. We've recently added Sarah Clark and Jill Mitch to the board. Jill is a new resident of the county who has extensive experience as a nonprofit development director. Sarah Clark is a recently retired global health consultant who also has development experience and has spent several years on the board of the Packard Foundation. So both of them will bring a wealth of energy and experience to our efforts to support the library. And that is the end of my report. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Bruce. That's all amazing news. It's amazing. I mean, it's just seeing it progress to this point is truly a phenomenal accomplishment. Just you and your board and all the volunteers. Thank you so much for all that you've done. And it's hard to believe. You know, I never thought I'd see the day, but here we are. And you folks just did an amazing job raising all these funds for these libraries. It's just wonderful news. Other board members, you're welcome. Other board members like to comment? No. Okay. Any other questions? Nothing. Okay. Are there any comments from the public on this?
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again, Bruce, and we really appreciate the good news and congratulations, and we look forward to continuing to reach all of our goals.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, and we're next going to go to the report by the Library Advisory Commission.
Good evening, board members. I'll be sharing just a few commission updates with you at this time. The Library Advisory Commission met on Monday, September 20th, and between the commission's July and September meetings, a subcommittee of Commissioners Nguyen, Ritma, and Vice Chair Dubin participated in a Zoom session with June Garcia to provide feedback on the desired qualities and priorities for the new library director. I wanted to share that commissioners emphasized in that session the importance of public participation in the process, as well as their confidence in June Garcia's expertise, knowledge of the system, as well as the community. So really pleased with how that process is moving forward. As you all heard, our September meeting was the Commission's first hybrid Zoom in-person meeting. Because we were first, it was a big lift by staff to make this possible. And I just want to echo Eric's comments. They did a phenomenal job. I was amazed at how well it went. We got into a good rhythm of mute discipline, I think. And I would also share that it was our first ability to meet in person in over a year and a half. And we could not have asked for a more appropriate venue for the meeting than the incredible newly opened Capitola Library branch. So Board Member Goldstein, you've got to go. It's just a phenomenal location. It was really special to be there. It was also a chance for us to have our first meeting in quite some time with full representation. So a warm welcome was given to Commissioner Pamela or Peppy Wall, who will be representing Scotts Valley. So just a few updates from that standpoint. The Commission did receive a really impressive presentation from Sarah Harbison on the efforts to maintain community access to the library's collections during the pandemic, while also managing shifts in the collections to accommodate the Measure S branch openings and temporary closures. Either one of those two would be a Herculean effort, and the fact that the library staff did that in tandem, I think we have superheroes working at our library branches. So just hats off to the team and to Sarah for maintaining such extensive community access and even expanding our e-collections through that process. Following that presentation, the commissioners did review 3 library policies. I know these policies are on your agenda tonight. They were the alcoholic beverage policy, the board communications policy, and the conflict of interest policy. There weren't any substantive changes requested of those policies by commissioners. However, there were some implementation steps identified with the conflict of interest policy as it pertains to the commission, and we'll be bringing those next steps back to our November meeting. But the main action taken at September's meeting was the appointment of Commissioners Wynn, Mount, and Vice Chair Dubin to a strategic planning subcommittee that will assist the planning process as the commission is a key community partner. Commissioners will participate in an October community workshop. They'll then meet with the library's internal strategic planning team and report out to the chair, the full commission, as well as the Joint Powers Authority on outcomes we anticipate the December and February meeting for the Joint Powers Authority. With that, I'll conclude my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. I really appreciate the report and want to thank you and your commission for taking a leadership role in helping devise all of these different ways for the community to have input into our director search and into our library policies. Really appreciate it. And also for your leadership in having a hybrid meeting. And I know it was a big lift by staff, but I know that it is important for some community members. They want to be there. And I also think it's just an important a next step to bring people back together. So I appreciate and thank you for your leadership role in having and pushing staff to have that hybrid meeting. So, and I'm sure the staff really came through as well. It sounds like they did a wonderful job. Are there any other questions or comments from board members? No. Okay, are there any comments from the public?
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Lindsay, for all your hard work, and please convey our thanks and gratitude to your entire commission. And we look forward to their input and involvement as we go forward with our director search.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. And we will now, this item 8, for the next chair, maybe we can remove this item 8 from future agendas. It's this strange item that says comments by board members. And we never have any usually, but if anybody feels the need to comment from the board, this is your chance, I guess.
I think this got added to the agenda back several years ago when we were thinking about the library projects, and it was an opportunity to kind of update the rest of the board about what was going on in our own jurisdictions. Otherwise, it felt like you were trying to shoehorn it in somewhere in an awkward way. So whether or not we need it going forward or not is certainly open question.
So it's kind of an update on projects. Similar to the other one, the LFFA, it's an update on projects.
Yeah, and probably repetitive because it ended up on both. We had sort of the same structure to both agendas.
Right. All right. I see no comments from board members, so we'll move on. Correspondence by the public. Okay, I guess we're just acknowledging we have correspondence by the public. No action on that. We will then move to item 10, which is the consent calendar. Are there any questions or comments from board members on the consent calendar? I don't see any hands raised. Are there any comments from the public on the consent calendar?
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay, great. And I will just note that on the consent calendar, one of the things is the item D, which is the great continued progress on the Monterey Peninsula Foundation grant matching funds, which is a great thing. But any other comments? Otherwise, we'll take a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move consent and also notice the great work that the Monterey Peninsula Foundation and our Friends group is doing on the fundraising. It's really wonderful to see.
Great.
Second.
Second from Director Menard, motion by Director Goldstein. Please call the vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Menard,
Aye.
Director Astorga.
Yes.
Okay, we will then move to general business. Item A, which is to elect the interim chair and vice chair. I guess we've already kind of gone over this once. Any other comments from board members? I don't think so. Any comments from the public on item A?
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, great. We have a motion by Director Menard, second by Director Astorga. Please call the vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Astorga.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item B, which is Santa Cruz Public Library policies number 101, number 102, and number 103. Do we have a staff report?
We do, and I'll just say that we have dates, of course, for all of our policies when we have to come back and review them, and so we have a number to catch up on, and my plan is to bring approximately 3 to each of our future meetings to review those. But there is nothing in these 3 policies that we've had issues with. And then just also for context for the new board members in terms of the practice that we have followed is to bring policies forward first to the Library Advisory Commission for review and discussion. And we're doing the same when it comes to reviewing the policies before they expire. And it did engage them in a conversation around the conflict of interest policy. Some of them are new to these practices. So we invited the library's attorney to the next LAC meeting to answer their questions and to review the policy some more with them. But these are the conflict of interest is a pretty standard policy that I know you are all familiar with. But we're just asking to re-up those 3 policies.
Okay, thank you. And Director Goldstein.
So a question about the guidelines for board meetings, board members and meetings. Is there any other policy, Eric, like a conflict of interest, not a conflict of interest, a code of conduct policy or anything like that? This is the first time this has come up since I've been on the board. Is there anything else that kind of relates to board member activities that's out there? Or is this it?
That's a great question. And I know that we have Kira on the line, so I just want to double check if she might be aware of any. We have, of course, a code of conduct for behavior in the library. So that would also govern board members when we're in these meetings as well. But I don't know if Sarah, if you see Kira's hand raised, and I can certainly get back to you on that. None are coming to mind.
I would be surprised if there was anything else. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't like a whole effort to develop a, I'm blanking on the right term for it, but the kind of code of conduct thing that we did recently with my council. Because I do have one little suggestion for this when we get to that stage.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from board members on this? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and ask for public comment on this item.
Director Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for comments and a motion.
So I do have a suggestion on the policy we were discussing about guidelines for board members. Assuming this is the document that sort of governs board member behavior, the one thing that I see it sort of missing is something along the lines of just says that individual board members don't direct the activities of staff. I think we all know that. We all are city managers, and so it's something that we're well aware of the structure. In most of our municipal codes, we already have that. There is some language in here. It says that board members will never ask staff to research a question or take on a project involving added work. It seems like that could be potentially just expanded a little bit to say something along the lines of, oh, I had it. I wrote it down and darn it. But something along the lines of, board members will not individually direct the work of staff and will work through the library director of the board, something along those lines. Just, I don't really see it as a big issue, but it seems like something that would belong in this document to me.
Yeah, I agree that would be useful, and it's something we all have in our codes, on our individual codes, city codes. So I'm sure Eric could get some standard language from one of the cities or county codes to borrow from that. Or Jamie, you could just send them the language you had from your code, that language about non-interference.
Yeah, it was pretty simple. I was just trying to come up with maybe a sentence in there because it talked about researching projects and things like that. And it's like, well, I don't think it's our role as individual board members to, walk into our library and start directing around the library manager or branch manager.
So I'm sorry, for clarification, because it's the third paragraph down under the subheading communication, you're referring to board members will never ask a staff member to research a question or take on a project involving added work. Those requests should be made to the director of libraries. And
yeah, it was just expanding on that a slight bit that just says really direct the work of staff. That's not our role to do as individual board members.
Okay.
And on the other policy, the conflict of interest code, just a comment is that I think that the review cycle, we don't have to do this annually. I think it's biannual is the state code on the state recommendation or requirement on the conflict of interest code. So it seems fine, but I was just so you guys know, I don't believe it's an annual review cycle. I confirmed that with my clerk this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We had it in the notes for the annual review schedule was looks like it was supposed to be back in March. So that's what we were going on, but it does show, you're right, that it was last revised March 2020. So I'll follow up and find out.
Yeah, I remember. I think it's local jurisdictions are supposed to do it on even years, if I remember correctly. But that's what my clerk told me.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Maybe you can fold your recommendations into a motion, Director Goldstein.
Okay. So this is not approving these things, right? This is for let me just check on the staff recommendation here. Okay, so we're really just reviewing them and they're going to come back. So my recommendation on the board member conduct policy would be to add some bit of explicit language, and I'm happy to help offline if the board's comfortable with that, that just says board members individually don't direct the work of individual library staff members. And then the other policies I thought looked good, just noting that I think the review cycle for the conflict code is 2 years and not every year.
Okay,
Long motion.
that's a motion from Director Goldstein.
That's a motion. It's a long one.
I'll second that.
And a second by Director Menard. Can go ahead and call the vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Yes.
Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Estover.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item C under general business. This is salary savings for collection spending. Staff recommendation is to approve and amend the FY 21-22 library budget in the amount of $250,000. There will be a presentation by Sarah Harbison from the Santa Cruz Public Library Collections.
Thank you. Sarah Harbison really wanted to be with us tonight, but there were some challenges outside of her control. So what we've done is created our own little hybrid for her presentation. So she presented to the Library Advisory Commission on this last month, and we have that taped. But since that presentation, we've had some really good feedback. And so after that is completed, I'll roll into some slides that try to answer the questions that were raised after the presentation. But the other piece of this is because she's providing a presentation on lessons learned over the past 18 months and some of the challenges that we see ahead with collections. This little division inside the library has done an amazing job, as Lindsay expressed, dealing with both opening and closing libraries, but also the many different service models that we had to go through over the past 18 months. And one of the challenges that we will be facing in the new year, we will be opening 5 libraries. And there is a thing in our trade called opening day collections, which is you want to have nice fresh books when you come into our nice new buildings. And so what we're asking the board is to allow us to reallocate money that we've collected through salary savings. And it's a conservative amount considering how much we have right now with salary savings. But we also think it'll be enough to help us meet that goal of having a nice new collection for those 5 new libraries. And so we're asking for $250,000 to be reappropriated. Most of that will go to print, and I'll go into those details in the part of my presentation. But we could, depending on how you feel, Carlos and Jamie, we can go into the presentation right now, or we can hold off on the presentation until you consider or have questions about the reallocation of those funds.
I thought we could go ahead and just go through the presentation first, and then we'll have discussion and questions from board members.
Thank you. Okay, Sarah. So Sarah Jones is going to bring in the presentation that we have from Sarah Harbison, who is the manager in charge of our collection department.
My name is Sarah Harbison. I am the manager of collection management services here at Santa Cruz Public Libraries. And I am here to talk to you, as Eric said, about some of the challenges that we've faced over the past 18 or so months, especially with providing access to the library's collection. And then I'm hoping to give a brief look at what is in store for us in the next year or so, as much as I can do that. So as everyone, we have faced many challenges over the past 18 months. Our first closed day due to the shelter in place was March 16th. 2020. And that meant that there was no staff on site. So we had to very quickly figure out how to meet these challenges that we were facing, especially providing access to the collection when we could not provide access to the physical space. So right away, we knew that since we weren't there to get the mail and to accept deliveries, we knew we needed to hold shipments. We had to put a hold on our mail. We had staff working from home, making phone calls and emailing all our vendors, put a hold on our newspaper and magazine subscriptions. We knew that we couldn't be receiving those either. And just as we thought that we'd figured things out with the pandemic and how to provide access, we also experienced some pretty devastating fires here in the county. So we had many staff who were evacuated, one who lost their home. We had 3 branches in the evacuation zones. There was lots of concern about the buildings and the materials and smoke damage of the materials. We also were hearing stories from patrons right away that as they were evacuating their homes, they were gathering their checked out library materials because they wanted to be sure to keep those safe. And we knew right away we didn't want anyone risking their lives to keep their library materials safe. So we said right away, if there is library material that's lost in the fires, we will waive the fees for those. During that time, we also had construction projects going on. We opened 2 branches in the first half of 2021, the La Selva Beach branch, as you know, and then of course the Capitola branch. So that was a lot. So I just wanted to talk through the steps that we took and how we met the challenges of providing access to the collection during this time. I realize this slide is probably pretty difficult to see, but the blue line represents the physical checkouts of materials system-wide beginning in February 2020. So right before we had to close, and then it goes all the way through July of 2021. And the orange line is Overdrive Checkout. So Overdrive provides our ebooks, our audiobooks, and our digital magazines. And so again, right down here, it doesn't look like as big of a jump because it's still not quite as big as our physical checkouts. But in February of 2020, we had 14,433 checkouts. And then that has since jumped just in July of this year to 27,396. So we've almost doubled. And what's really interesting to me about this chart is we can track the physical checkouts and how they just plummet. But then as we are reintroducing services and access to our physical locations, we can see those physical checkouts rebounding, but we're not seeing the Overdrive and the e-material checkouts lessening at all. They're continuing to grow, which has been interesting for us. We were really curious how that would play out if we would continue to see the use of those e-materials, and we have. We knew right away in March that the demand for our e-resources was going to be very heavy, as it was, and that it was going to put a big strain on our budget for the ebooks and e-audiobooks and the streaming video. We also knew that we needed to continue to order physical materials for the library. We knew that we weren't going to make the switch to digital only. We needed to keep placing those orders for the physical books and media during that time. So we couldn't just transfer our entire materials budget over to e-resources. But the state library recognized immediately that all public libraries were in this position, and they provided 2 rounds of crisis collection funding for $5,000 each. So we were very grateful to have that additional funding. And the Friends of the Library really stepped up, and they campaigned and raised just about $40,000 to increase access to ebooks and e-audiobooks for students and families who the students were going to school virtually. So that had a huge impact on the access for students and families during that time. Part of what we knew we needed to do was keep patrons connected. Starting in March, we knew that not all patrons had access to the internet, and they may not have had the devices either to download or stream digital content. We did keep Wi-Fi available at our branches, as much as we could. But right away, we knew we had to open up our phones since people couldn't come in to talk to us. We really stepped up our phone service. In addition as well, email and chat reference were happening. But the summer of 2020, we saw a peak of 650 calls per week. Pre-pandemic, we were averaging about 200 calls per week. So a lot of people were calling. They needed help downloading an ebook for the first time. They needed help figuring out how to use their device with library content. We were also hearing from patrons who couldn't use their accounts, like they had just hit their expiration date and needed help getting back online, or perhaps they didn't have an account anymore and then suddenly found that they had the time and the interest to start using the library again. So we were very happy to be able to help patrons over the phone. We also increased access to our card registration through our website. So we've always allowed patrons to sign up for cards online, but then we ask that they come into a branch to get a physical card and show their ID and proof of address. But since patrons weren't able to do that during this time, we knew that we would need to extend the expiration dates for these online accounts and then the existing online accounts so that patrons could hang on to those a little bit longer. We also knew that with these online accounts, we call them PAC Reg account because they're registered online through our public access catalog. We knew that we needed to provide more access using those account numbers to our digital resources. So this is just a screenshot from a memo to staff. So it's dated March 23rd. So a week after we closed our facilities, staff had already reached out and contacted all our digital resource vendors, and they arranged for patrons with these online accounts to be able to sign up for accounts and start using those services right away. And we also made some changes so that patrons who had blocked accounts, maybe their card was expired or they had fines on their card that were preventing them from using these resources, could temporarily use those resources. They couldn't come in to take advantage of working with staff to resolve those issues with their accounts. Another way that we kept patrons connected over the past 18 months is we initiated the SORA program. So SORA is it's an app or a website that is connected to Overdrive, which provides our ebooks and audiobooks. And it provides access to the youth Overdrive titles that are available through Santa Cruz Public Libraries. And the school district that we have currently partnered with is the Santa Cruz City Schools. And they also have their own collection of ebooks and perhaps audiobooks too that students can use. But for any of the available ebooks and audiobooks through Overdrive, the youth materials only, they also have access to. So that's really helped to increase access to our collection. And then we've just initiated a pilot program of SORA through the Scotts Valley School District as well. And just as a note on this, the library has invited Chris Monroe, who's the superintendent of Santa Cruz City Schools, and she accepted to be a keynote speaker for the library staff day, which is coming up next month. We're very excited about that. Okay, so with some of the extra funding, especially that crisis collection funding for e-resources that we got from the state, we initiated an Overdrive Lucky Day collection. So you may be familiar with our physical Lucky Day collection. And those are titles that do not go to fill holds. So they're there at the branch and available for patrons to come in. They're usually the most popular titles with lengthy lists, but a patron could come in and see it on display and check it out that day and skip the waiting list. During this time, we knew that we couldn't offer the lucky days for patrons coming in to browse. So we quickly made all of the physical lucky days in our collection go to fill holds, and they could be checked out by patrons. So that really helped increase access. And then we also initiated an Overdrive Lucky Day. So these were ebooks that were available for checkout for 7 days only, and only a patron can only borrow one at a time. And there are no renewals or holds on those. And that proved to be very popular and just another way for patrons to get access to materials quickly. Another way that we have kept patrons connected over the past 18 months is we introduced a Lendable tech collection. And included in this collection, we have Wi-Fi hotspots, we have Amazon Fire 7 tablets, and we have Chromebooks. And we also bundled some of the Wi-Fi hotspots together with the Chromebooks to circulate as a kit, because we realized that often if someone needed to check out a Chromebook, they would likely need access to the internet as well. And the same with a hotspot. If they checked out a hotspot, then they need a device to use it with. So these, pretty much from the beginning, these have had pretty lengthy hold lists and have proven to be very popular. When we first introduced them, we partnered with the City of Santa Cruz to provide some Chromebooks and some hotspots for their essential worker childcare program that they were hosting at the London Nelson Center. And then for a short time, we provided some devices at the Scotts Valley Community Center during the evacuations during the fires. They needed a little extra Wi-Fi. Another thing I wanted to talk about keeping patrons connected over the past 18 months is we introduced a book bundle program. So one of the things that we heard from patrons is they really missed being able to come in and browse the collection, especially families with kids, because they wanted to be able to come in and just check out a stack of books and carry books out by the armload. Especially kids go through the books so quickly. So staff heard that and they introduced something called a book bundle at the downtown library. So there was a form on our website where kids and families could fill out what they wanted to have in a bundle. And we had 3 different types of bundles. One full of beginning readers. So that step between being read to and just learning to read as readers, beginning chapter books, and then J fiction, which are chapter books. And then there were different categories in there too, which were pretty fun. Animals, humor, there was a graphic novel option, adventure, and then also just a random grab bag, which meant staff. So as we were making all these changes, at the same time, we were working hard on reopening our physical locations. So I'm sure you remember when we first initiated curbside, and then we moved to grab and go lobby service, and now we've just taken another step in making our meeting rooms available. So all of those changes that we made over this time, we had to go back and change them back to the way they were, if appropriate. Like the Lucky Day books, we pulled all those back in and then reinitiated our contract with our vendor to get more Lucky Day books. We restarted our magazines and newspapers. I mentioned that we held shipments until we had staff working on site again. And that didn't mean that our vendors stopped working on our orders. They continued processing our orders and packaging them up for shipping. And as soon as we gave the go-ahead, they went ahead and shipped them. So as soon as we were back in the buildings, there were a lot of deliveries coming in for us and tubs of mail for us to process. So it was really exciting. We were excited to be back and getting back to normal. The pandemic continues to provide challenges, as we all know, and it's looking like it's not going to be over anytime soon. Another current and future challenge, we're already planning on branches opening over the next year. We've got 5 branches reopening. Live Oak and Scotts Valley have stored collections, and Boulder Creek as well. So we want to make sure that we get those collections online and available for browsing and holds, and make sure that we've got an influx of new materials for those branches. They're also, for the branches that are reopening, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, we're also creating local history collections for each of those branches. We did this for Felton and La Selva Beach and Capitola. We've got a dedicated shelving area just for books on local history, especially dedicated to the local community. And they do check out, but then they always come right back to that branch when they're returned. Big challenge that we are experiencing currently is our vendors are experiencing some pretty significant supply chain challenges and labor shortages. So our main book vendor is located in Georgia, and they are having trouble getting labor in their warehouse to process all of our books. So when we order from them, they provide the cataloging records, and then they put the covers on the books, and they apply the spine labels. So when they get to us, they're shelf ready. We can just scan them and then send them out right away. So that means that they have a lot of staff who are working to our specs to prepare these materials, but they've been having trouble getting enough staff. They're competing with Amazon warehouses, and there was a Toyota battery plant that just opened nearby that's taking some of their staff away. So they've really been working on incentives and attracting more staff, but that has been keeping us from getting our materials on time. And the entire publishing industry is also experiencing some paper shortages and printing shortages. So they're telling us we need to order early, which we are. We always order 3 months ahead for popular titles. But we're a little worried that it's going to take a little bit of time to get the materials that are not the big bestsellers on top of the list. So that's something that we are working on and is challenging us. And then just looking ahead to the new Aptos and downtown branches opening, they'll have lots of shelving and will need new collections. So we're excited about that, but it's going to take quite a bit of work to get there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have three, just bear with us. We've got 3 more slides to take you through some of the feedback that we received since that presentation. Okay, so this is similar to a slide that Sarah showed to you, but now it just breaks it apart so that you can see a little bit more clearly the distinction between e-resources and the print. This is where we are right now in terms of how we spend our money and how it is split up. You can see it's fairly equal between print and digital. And then we have that smaller piece of the pie there is for media like CDs and DVDs. We were also asked for a historical reference in terms of where and what we've been spending the money on for our collection. And you can see the budget versus the orange there. The actual varies depending on things like what we're going to try to do today, which is to reallocate some of the salary savings into the collection. And we've also relied, of course, on donations and trusts to support our work with collection development. So this is what we are aspiring to do, so that we can have a really nice new collection when we open those 5 libraries. We are hoping to spend $190,000 on physical materials. I keep saying print, but there are other kinds of physical materials other than print, and then e-resources would be 24% of the pie there. And so, as I mentioned, we are really looking for a conservative amount of the amount that is currently saved, which the time of this report, which was written, we have $500,000 in salary savings. And so we're looking at taking half of that right now. And of course, we'll continue to capture some salary savings, but we are working hard with our recruitment for a number of positions, including the director's position. So I'm open to any questions.
Okay. I had a question. How much do we normally budget for salary savings? And how does that, because we always build in an assumption of salary savings, I'm assuming. So just wondering how that compares to the amount we're getting in salary savings.
It's an excellent question, and I'm new to the budget here, so I don't know the answer to that. I know it's been rolled over for some time. But this is also an unprecedented year, of course, because we had such a large reduction in staff last year, and then you thankfully made us whole again so that we could begin that recruitment. The challenge, of course, has been that it is a tough time to recruit right now, and our human resources is also, and it seems Kira is telling us that it's 770,000 is what we usually budget for vacancies. Thanks, Kira. And then this is definitely, though, an unprecedented year. We still have a number of vacancies for our paraprofessionals, a librarian vacancy, we call it info specialist, also another specialist position, and the manager for our IT is vacant, as well as the director.
Okay, so if we normally budget 775,000 for salary savings, and we've already achieved 500,000 as of to date, or by the mid-year, we're saying. So then, assuming we are going to get $1 million of salary savings, so by taking 250,000, we would still be right on budget. Then that's what I'm assuming. Is that what we're kind of? My math is kind of correct.
Yes.
Okay. Other board members have questions? I don't see any questions. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to the public.
Chair Palacios, there are no public comments.
Okay. So it looks like staff's recommendation would still we would still meet our budgeted salary savings, even with dedicating $250,000 to the collections. So I'm okay with it, but if there's any other discussion or emotion from other board members.
I would just like to say, number one, that I really want to thank Eric and your entire team for bringing this forward. I'm glad that you guys are actively looking at the situation, monitoring the budget, and also looking for opportunities like this. Obviously, that presentation really made it clear what kind of changes the library was managing through the pandemic, helping, I think, the board understand that and the different decisions and proactive measures that were taken to try to continue to provide services. So I'm really appreciative of you looking for opportunities like this, because I do know the value of having, when we open libraries, having nice material available, and also trying to supplement those ebooks, because I know that I'm someone who ends up frustrated at times when I find out that a book can't be checked out for, the wait list is really long. So I just want to really thank you for bringing this to our attention, and Carlos also for reminding us that we do budget in a chunk of salary savings, and we do need to keep our eye on that to make sure we're not double spending it.
Yes. And do we have a motion to approve? I don't see any other questions.
I didn't want to step on anyone if there was another question or comment, but I would move that we approve and amend the fiscal year 21-22 library budget in the amount of $250,000, shifting the funding from staffing to the materials budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we go ahead and call for the vote?
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Yes.
Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Estoka.
Yes.
Great. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. And we'll now go to the remote teleconference meetings resolution. We just did this for the LFFA, so now we pretty much understand what it is. So any other discussion from board members? Are there any comments from the public? Okay.
Chair
we'll go ahead.
Palacios, there are no public comments.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and have it brought to the board for a motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead and call for the vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Menard,
Yes.
Director Estoka.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That concludes our regular agenda. We have item 12, the upcoming scheduled meetings. I know we already discussed that at the LFFA, so I don't think we need any further discussion unless staff has something to add.
No. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll just move on from that item and we will move on to adjournment. All right, thank you, everyone. See you in Capitola.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.